Great pleasure this morning to introduce our keynote speaker. Ron Shuali is the founder of Shuali Life Skills. He created Shuali Life as the answer to the constant changing society where many essential life skills are getting skipped over in education. Ron speaks to schools, PTO groups, corporations about the power of choice. Ron spent over 10 years studying philosophy, psychology, and many other modalities in his quest to truly understand why and how the human brain works. Ron is a graduate of Rutgers University, a certified personal trainer, a black belt martial arts instructor, a Reiki master, and a former professional wrestler, and holds the NWA New York Tag Team Championship belt. He's also an FIT Fit Master Instructor. Ron has authored many articles, and many have been written about him. He's become New Jersey 12's In Our Schools resident specialist, talking about behavior management, bullying, and child abduction prevention. Ron is the author of Building the 21st Century Child, an instructional manual club. He is a proud member of the National Speakers Association, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Ron Shuali.
Like Mike said, my name is Ron Shuali. Can everybody hear me? Okay. And today we're going to talk about something exciting. We're going to be talking about discipline. There's a well-known pediatrician by the name of Dr. William Sears. He defines discipline as 4 different things. Number 1, giving a child the tools to succeed in life. Number 2, doing whatever you have to do to like teaching your children. Yes, that's important. Number 3, discipline is based on building the right relationship with the child more than using the right techniques. And number 4 is helping a child develop inner controls that last a lifetime. Pretty interesting. How many of you are excited to talk about discipline today? Really? You don't look excited. All right, let's try something a little bit different. Why resisting, hands in the air? Come on, get up. Why resisting, touch your nose? Why resisting, touch your ears? Why resisting, touch your toes? All right, we're going to try this again. Why resisting, hands in the air? Touch your nose, touch your ears, touch your head. All right, come on, people, really? You know what? Forget about discipline. Ready? Head, shoulders, knees and toes, head. Okay, wow. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Okay, good. Who was about to fall asleep? Raise your hand about 2 minutes ago. Who looked at their clocks? Who thought, really, until 4 o'clock? What's the difference between the way that I was being about 2 minutes ago and the way that I'm being now? This is audience participation. Excitement, okay? Animated. Loud. Who would rather me be the way that I was being 2 minutes ago or the way that I'm being? Who would rather me be the way that I was being 2 minutes ago? Who's more interested in me being the way that I am now? Okay, got it. Now here's a question for you. Was it your fault or your responsibility that you were not as engaged in the conversation we were going to have? Or was it my fault or my responsibility as the educator to get you engaged? Who says it was your fault? Raise your hand. Interesting. Who said it was my fault? Raise your hand. There you go. Always blame. Great. We're humans, aren't we? Fantastic. Now, when you have a child in your school, or you have a parent or a teacher in your school, and they're not as engaged, and they're not as excited, or they're not listening, is it the child's fault or responsibility? Is it the teacher's fault or responsibility? Or is it your fault or responsibility? Let's take away the word of fault. Remember who had their hands up and who didn't? Is it your responsibility to figure out a way how to engage that child or that parent? Who says it's the child's fault? Come on, you know you want to raise your hands. Okay, you're smart because you're not about to raise your hand. Who thinks it's the teacher's fault? That she's just not as engaged, not as empowered. It's her fault, right? You guys are good. Who wants to take that responsibility on themselves? Raise your hand. Just a couple of you. Interesting. Now, you are the first group of people that I've spoken in front of that don't want to take responsibility. That's extreme sarcasm. See, let me explain the problem. The problem is that every single one of you is a human being, right? Are we agreeing on that? And your kids, believe it or not, are all human beings, right? Okay, some of you are like, well, you don't know Billy. Okay. However, see, what I'm going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about the conversation of choice. What do I mean by choice? We cannot force anybody to do anything that we don't want them to do. Anybody married? Right? Does that make sense? So, for you to really understand how to communicate to a child, or how to communicate to a parent, or a director, we have to figure out a way how to get them to choose to listen. Does that make sense? So what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be experiencing what the children experience. Hi, Holly. Everyone wave to Holly.
She's 9 months pregnant. That's why we're late. She had to go to the bathroom.
She's throwing up? Okay, good. Okay. That's in an hour when she's here. So the point we're making is that everything is about choice. We're going to walk through the children's shoes. We're going to walk through the parent's shoes. We're going to walk through your teacher's shoes, for you to really be able to understand where they're coming from, and then it might make a different choice. Now, it was probably March of last year. I was at the Goddard School in Flemington. A lovely director by the name of Holly brought me in to do a behavior management seminar. It was about 8:30 at night, and the program was done. A couple of the teachers had some questions, and one teacher, Rachel, she came up to me. And she came up to me with a look of excitement and frustration together. You ever see one of those kind of look at this? I don't really know what to do. And she told me what happens if you have 5 children in your classroom that have behavior issues. Not 1, not 2, but 5. And I told her, great, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll figure it out, I promise. And she kind of looked at me with this not so confident look, but okay, let's see what happens. Got there around 9:30, watched the class until 10, started coaching her till about 11. She started to listen to what I was telling her to do. When she took on my coaching, the children started taking on her coaching. When she started to listen, the children started to listen. As the weeks progressed, on and on and on, she became more powerful, then she became more passionate, and to my understanding, she became one of the most powerful teachers in that school. Would you agree? And then she got up and left Holly and went to go start a preschool with her mom. So that's not the best thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen with the teachers that I coach with you guys, okay? However, she became empowered. She became empowered because of what we're going to be talking about. In the next hour and 45 minutes, you are going to learn more about classroom management and human behavior than you will learn in any college class. And first we're going to be talking about, number 1, how we learn how to train the children, but really, if we really are training the children. Now, I'll give you a little background on myself. The first time I actually ever walked into a Goddard school, it was actually the Goddard School in Dayton. One of the directors wanted a fitness type program before the basic program or anything like that existed, so I went in there. And I was doing about 3 weeks of fitness and 1 week of karate, 3 weeks of fitness, 1 week of karate. So I started in school, and I came in, not dressed like this. And first thing I did was I started putting my poly spots out. You guys ever see these? These are awesome. okay? So I put the poly spots, started putting them out on the floor, getting ready for the first group of kids. Now, for me, I thought that preschool started at around, 2.5 years old. I didn't realize, did you know that you have kids younger in those schools? Just a couple of them? I walked in, I'm putting this down, all of a sudden, I looked over, and I saw this floating table. And I didn't understand, number one, how they figure out tables can hover. And then I saw there was a base attached, and there was a group of these little babies. And the little babies, some of you get, oh, hovering table, I get it. It kind of looks. So there's like 5 or 6 babies, and they're sitting around, and they're having the most amazing conversations with each other. And they're talking to each other, but we don't exactly understand what we're talking about. So I'll just translate. They were sitting there going like, and the other one's going. And basically the conversation probably went along some line like, what are you doing today? And the kid, he went, pooping. And then what are you doing today? Same. Okay. What color? I'm thinking green. How about you? It's around Halloween. Let's go for orange. And then they started talking, but you know what? It looked like they were getting bored. And then all of a sudden the teachers went by, and it's time to give them their little drinks. So, see if I can kind of put this over here a little bit. So, she puts, I don't like this stage. Can you guys still see me? Okay, good. So, she put the baby bottles on the baby table, and the babies started looking, and they're looking around, and so they look at the baby bottles, and they go like this, and they go, yes, I am doing this actually, okay? And they're going, and they start drinking, and then all of a sudden, one of the babies goes like this. And what I saw was the most, wow, we're all the way over there. What I saw was one of the most amazing displays of human behavior. It kind of went something like this. And the babies went, oh. Did you see that? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I'm going to try it again. No, don't do it. I'm going to try it again. Don't do it. I'm going to try it again. So then the baby goes, and the director goes, the teacher goes, and then all of a sudden the other babies went, I'm not bored anymore. And you went, you, on 3, ready? 1, 2, boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, another director came back, she flung off a tree, and she went, and they're putting the baby bottles back. And then, of course, they're doing the thing that always works. No! And the babies are sitting there, and they're going, oh, it's only 9 in the morning. I'm going to be here till 6. And the other one goes, wait till the food gets here. Is it warm in here? All right, good. Like I'm all cleaned up. Let me ask you a question. Rhetorical or not? Anybody ever see something kind of like that in their baby room? Not exactly, but we're in charge of the kids, right? We train them 100%. 90, 80, 70, 60, 50 maybe if they let us, type thing. Okay, in those situations, who's in charge? Who's really training who? Is it us? I went to a college, I have a degree. No. These babies are amazingly intelligent. How many have, and then they get older, how many have 3-year-olds that talk like 6-year-olds? Raise your hand. How many have 5-year-olds that talk like 12-year-olds? How many times have you caught yourself in your office having a conversation with a child saying, how do you know this stuff? like what? So, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to consider. There's a word I will be using often, consider. Consider that children of the last 10, 15 years have skipped a stage in evolution. You know, kids get a little smarter. Oh, they've skipped. How many of you, now this is a rhetorical question, you can answer it for yourself in your mind. You know, sometimes we answer questions in our brain. You know that, like that voice? Yeah, that one. That one that just said, like, you know, okay, what voice is talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Did he really just act like a gorilla in front of us? Okay. That voice is there not really meant to engage us, but it's really meant to be more like a self-sabotager. Like, you know, how many times does that voice actually say, great, I can't wait to go to the gym. You know, I don't want that cookie. No, it's meant to be like, no, I don't want that cookie. I deserve it. It's been a long day. I had 2 kids throw up on me today. So what we're talking about consider. Consider that these kids have skipped a level in evolution. And we have to figure out a way how to control them. But it's not just controlling them. It's how to get them to choose to be good listeners. Does that make sense? Because we are human beings. See, this really isn't a conversation about education. This is more of a seminar or workshop about being human and what it takes to be human. All humans, raise your hand. Okay, don't look around the room. I knew it! So, and as human beings, we don't like to be told what to do. Who here looks forward to going home or going back to school? Who here looks forward to being told what to do? Raise your hand. Wow, it's amazing. But who here likes to tell other people what to do? Raise your hand. Just like 6 or 7 of you, right? Okay. And then some people are pointing to each other. Who goes shopping here? Just a couple of you. Okay, got it. When you go shopping and you walk into a dressing room and you see something that works for you, makes sense. If you go and let's say it's a pair of pants or let's say it's a dress, there's only a couple of guys here, so I mean, not really into the heels. Actually, I don't really know the guys that well, so it could be a different conversation. If you're in the dressing room and the dress works, or it makes sense, or the skirt works and it makes sense, the shoes work and they make sense, what do? Buy it. Do you buy it before you try it on? Sometimes, but sometimes, most of the time, you try it on. But what happens if you try it on, or you look at it, and you consider it, and it doesn't really make sense? What do? You put it back, you leave it. Or somebody said put it in your purse and run. Okay, fine. That's okay. Keep it a little security. So, all I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to consider. Consider that the conversation that we're going to be having now, and also later on if you pick my behavior management seminar, consider that some of these conversations, some of these ideas, whether out there or not, will make a difference for your children. Especially the ones that are the brilliant ones. The ones that are the behavior issues. The ones that you don't know what to do with them sometimes, but you have a feeling if they're put in the right direction, they're going to do amazing things. Anybody have kids like that? Absolutely. But we don't know what to do sometimes. I'm going to give you tools. But what's going to stop you is something called opinions. Anybody have those? Just a couple of you? And your opinions will go something like, this won't work for my kids. This won't work for my school. I don't think my teachers would do this. I don't think this is a great idea. I'm going to keep doing it my way, even though my way isn't working, but I'm not going to tell anybody. You know, there's all different things that are going to pop up. But that's when the conversation is about us. And I sincerely hope that if you work in the preschool community, it's not really about you, but it's about the children. So all I'm asking is the following. Put aside your opinions until 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, believe me, your opinions can come back as much as you want. Probably you'll be talking trash about me later. That's okay, totally cool. I was a pro wrestler, I'm used to talking trash, okay? Put aside your opinions for the possibility that some of the tools that I'm going to give you are going to not only change the lives of your teachers and change the lives of your children, but also put them into a direction where you could be sitting in front of your TV 20, 25 years from now and have a child in a lab break the space-time continuum. Have a child sitting there and looking at the TV going, wow, she's president. Wait a minute, that name sounds familiar. 20 years ago? No way! Poopy Jessie! But is that at all not reasonable, or is there even a small chance that can actually happen? So who here, and this may be the first time, and I understand, I'm a guy, so our opinions, I know I'm right all the time, right? Anybody know any men? Right? So anybody know any men that know they're right? Okay, guys, there's a couple of you here to close your ears. Are we ever right? Okay, will we ever let us know it? Yes, some of you. And then you wrap us around your fingers, do a thing, just same thing like the baby bottles, whatever it is. See, we're all just spending our training. So who here is going to put their opinions aside for the possibility of creating greatness in their kids and their teachers? Raise your hand. Say, I will. Yeah. You look as excited as like when we were actually, in the beginning of the seminar when I was talking solely, looking at me like Paris Hilton taking the SATs, like, or actually more like Paris Hilton trying to spell SAT. Is the W silent? Okay, so really, picture a child. I want you to picture a child in your school that you don't think. I'm sorry, let's go the other way. Picture a child in your school that you think, if only X, Y, or Z happened, this child would be amazing. Picture that child. Or you could even picture that teacher, that one that's kind of getting tired of teaching. Does everybody have somebody in their head? Okay. Are you willing to put your opinion aside for the possibility that that person or that child will be not just great, but awesome? Put them at stake, not your own opinions. Who's willing to do that? Say, I will! I will. Okay, all right. I'll take it for a little bit. That's fine. Okay. See, now a lot of you have right now what we call expectation. You have an expectation of the workshop. You have an expectation of the day. You have an expectation of yourself at the roulette table tonight around 11 o'clock. Some of you are laughing because it's happy. See, as human beings, we have these things called expectations, or otherwise called shoulds. Like, I should get here on time. This child should be this way. This parent should listen. This teacher should do it my way. Should. Anybody have these shoulds? The sun should always be shining. When we leave tonight, let's say if you leave tonight at 10:30 and you're driving home, there should be no traffic, right? I mean, are we assume Friday, no traffic, 10:30? But when we create a should, when we create an expectation, what happens is we set ourselves up for failure. What do I mean by that? When you have an expectation that you create, that expectation is up here. When that expectation is fulfilled, meaning 100%, you're not really excited. It's kind of like expected. Hence the expectation. So you're kind of at a neutral. Does that make sense? But then what happens if all of a sudden you're leaving here and there's an accident on the AC Expressway? Or there's an accident on the Parkway? Is traffic the way that it should be? So are you okay? Are you excited? Or are you upset? You're upset. But yet in the real world, everything happened the way it was going to happen. But we created an expectation for ourselves and hence led us to be upset. Does that make sense? So what if you lived in a world where there were no expectations? Like, I expected to be a certain cool temperature here, okay? Absolutely. But you know what? If I lived my life through expectations, then I wouldn't carry one of these bandanas around. Eventually I'd sweat through the entire workshop and probably end up being like 105 pounds. But that's not it, okay? So who here is willing to kind of catch their expectation? Do you guys ever say that? Do you ever say like, this child should be this way? How come she's not listening? She shouldn't be calling out through text messaging, right? Anybody have any teachers that call out through text messaging? Because that works so well, okay? So this is what I'm asking you. Catch yourself with your shoulds. Because if you catch yourself with your shoulds, what's going to happen is you'll see how you kind of set yourself up for disappointment. Instead of setting yourself up from a should, try to create what I like to call just a goose egg. Setting yourself up from nothing. When you call a parent into a school, Are you normally calling that parent in to say, hey, listen, I want to tell you how great your child is? No, you're not. Do you think that parent knows that? Absolutely. When your child comes down to your office, are they coming down to your office to get a super high five from you? Or usually it's the opposite? What's that? So, okay, sometimes? Okay, God, well, Monica's awesome. Okay, so, and she also had my seminar before. So anyway, so what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about expectations, we're going to talk about shoulds, we're also going to talk about really control. And then later on in the workshop today, we're also going to talk about a behavior management system and different techniques that actually work very, very well if used, sorry to say it, 100% of the time. You know, like when you guys make a threat to a child, this is going to happen, that you follow through 100% every single time, right? Some of you are like, what? What do you mean 100%? I think about 70. Okay, that's okay because you're human beings. There's nothing wrong with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually have a conversation with you, but it's going to be through a little story. Anybody here like stories? Okay, let's try it a different way. You guys look a little too serious enough. Anybody want to hear a story? Wow. Okay, so this is a story about a little boy named Eddie. Okay, and this was about maybe 6 months later when I was teaching a karate class in another school. Okay, and Eddie is one of these kids that has slightly larger than life high energy, kind of like this. Oh, it's a new room. Oh, what's going on? Oh, cool. Is anything on? Anybody have any kids like that? Anybody have like 50 kids like that? Okay, got it. So Eddie came in now. It's a karate class. It's not maybe like 15 kids or so. Eddie comes in through the door, and I was already told by one of the directors, oh, by the way, there's this little boy named Eddie, and he's slightly high energy. He sometimes has some behavior concerns. I don't think he should be in your class, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? These are exactly the kids that I want in my class. I want them to use up their energy. So Eddie comes in, and he goes over, and the first thing I do is I tell the kids, okay, everybody look at their colorful spots. And these are the spots that are on the floor right now. And I say, everybody go find a spot and stand up. So all the kids run over, and they go, and they just stand on a spot like this, and they're just looking around. And I tell everybody say crisscross applesauce. And they all say crisscross applesauce. And all of a sudden, I see Eddie kind of, starting to move around back and forth. So I'm like, all right, let's start by playing a game. So I start playing a game called Snake Bite. So I start by playing a game called Snake Bite. And the way we play Snake Bite, it's a rope that spins around, and the kids have to jump over it. Okay? As the kids jump over it, the snake bites them in their feet, they get all excited, and they get, oh, the snake bit me, and we learn how to do jumps like that. I start by playing the game. We're playing maybe about a whole whopping 30 seconds. Usually the attention span of a child. All of a sudden, Eddie bumps into one of his friends, and he goes, ah! And I say, oh, perfect opportunity. So what do is I start explaining my behavior management system. And the behavior management system is called the Shuali structure system. What's a Shuali? Shuali is a way that we breathe. It's a way that you breathe that helps you relax. And just some of you, are sitting up straight, you're a little, I understand, kind of just woke up a little bit of time ago. So what I want you to do is I want you to breathe. Believe it or not, I will take a breath, probably around 11:15 or so, okay? And breathing is very important. See, if we can teach our teachers and we can teach our children how to breathe and our parents how to breathe, life would be amazing. So this is what I want you to do. Whatever you have in your hands, just put it on your table. Okay, unless it's a tip, throw it up there, okay? All I want you to do is I want you to take your hands and just put them together like this. You're going to have your first, some of you, maybe your first taste of actual energy work. You ready? Rub your hands like this. Old school Mr. Miyagi. Do you guys feel cold or do you feel heat? Okay, good. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go a little faster, and then take your hands and go like this. Does anybody feel anything in their hands? Some heat, tingling? Anybody feel like a magnet? A little bit? Okay, welcome to the world of energy. Okay, so now what you do is you take your hands up like this. You still have the energy in your hands. You lift your hands up. You take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, you go shh. Okay, good. And it's okay to giggle. Some people are like, I can't giggle. It's Friday. It's don't work that. Okay, ready? And breathe in. And go shh. Someone just hit their hand on the chair. That probably hurt, but right? Okay, ready? One more time. Breathe in. And go shh. Okay, now 3 breaths, 12 seconds. Who kind of feels a little better? Honestly, raise your hand. Okay. Liars! Okay. Who here feels a little happier? Raise your hand. Okay, got it. Thank you. 2 people in the back, I'll pay you later. So that's part of the program it's all about. It's about some part of breathing, okay? So what we do is we tell the kids after they sit down, okay, so today, after we have fun, we're gonna play some fun games, do some karate, do some this, do some that. We're gonna get something really, really cool. If you're a good listener, you get smelly stamps. Ooh. Now this smelly stamp, this smelly stamp smells like chocolate, but not just any chocolate. Who here remembers Cocoa Puffs? Or Cocoa Krispies? You let it sit in the bowl for about 5-10 minutes, you stir it around, all of a sudden the milk gets, and then you get rid of all that crappy Rice Krispie stuff, you eat it, or here's the dog, and then what do you do with the bowl? All over your clothing, and then you're ready for school. So what we do is we use smelly stamps. Now really, 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 remember you're gonna be stepping into their shoes. Who here, after that whole 30-second experience, actually wants to smell the stamp? Anybody? You want to smell it? Okay. Okay. Can you pass that stamp down to her? Are you mad and writing hard because I want you to smell the stamp? Okay. How does it smell? Really? Are you lying? Okay, good. Just making sure. Okay, so I need that back. No, come on, seriously, give it back. She's like, I'm keeping it. I'm out of here. I got a prize. And then we use these smelly stamps. Now, the reason why we use these is because they're positive reinforcers. What else do you use? Do you use stickers? What other positive reinforcer do you use? Thumbs up, okay. Anybody do a high five? The power of a high five is amazing. If you just took a high five back to your schools, it would change the entire energy of your schools. Look and feel how you are right now. Look to your left and look to your right and give each other a high five. Do it. Yeah. No, stop your laughing. No smiling. No, you can't. You can't not smile or giggle. You can't not smile or giggle when you give a high five. It's an amazing thing. Some people are like, I'm still happy. But see, now some people, I've heard from other schools, not from here, I've heard from other schools that some people are like, well, what do you mean positive reinforcers? Do you think that I want my child to have stamps up and down his arm the whole entire thing? It's like, we don't use positive reinforcers in life. And I'm like, really? Absolutely you do. Every 2 weeks? What is it, the 1st and the 15th? Every other Friday? Absolutely. Because you know why? What happened, so what are your positive reinforcers? Money. Yeah, someone's saying money. I'm taking my positive reinforcer. I'm handing it to Trump tonight. Okay. But we have positive reinforcers all through our lives. But what happens if one day your positive reinforcer wasn't there? You, of course, would be just as excited to work. You, of course, would be just as happy. And you, for a second, you wouldn't complain. You wouldn't whine. You wouldn't bite, maybe. Okay? And then 2 weeks, now some of you, and you know who you are, the people pleasers, it'll get there in 2 weeks. I'm sure it was a mistake. Anybody ever see Office Space? Yeah. Okay, some of you might sense the building on fire. Okay. Some of you caught that. Positive reinforcers are amazing. What happens if 2 weeks go by again? You don't get your positive reinforcer again. She's starting to bite. Right? She's like, I'm biting, okay? Positive reinforcers run us. They run us, they run us, they run us. So that's why we use these to set these kids up for positiveness, okay? Positive news. Okay, so all the kids are lined up. I explained about the stamp. Now, if you're not a good listener, I give you a 1. If you're still not a good listener, I give you a 2. If you're still not a good listener, I give you a 3. Then what do is I have you go sit over in what I call, well, when you redirect, what's the chair that, or the area that you tend to send people, send kids? The library, okay. Now, in the olden days, anybody from Dyfus here? Woo. So the olden days, we would sit them in the what chair? Timeout chair. I know nobody does that. But when we sit them in the timeout chair, the ones that are giggling are saying, "Don't, I shouldn't do that." When you sit them in the timeout chair, what I sit them in is I call it the breathing chair. You know, you breathe in, you breathe out. We usually tell them, sit there and think about what you did. Absolutely, 100%. So you have a child that sits down, thinking about what he did. I wrote on the wall. You know, I could have used green. I probably should have used orange. You know, why did I tell? And basically, having a child sit there and think about what they did is like having a bank robber sit in the jail cell and try to think about that robbery over and over and over again, trying to figure out how to make that robbery better, who else he could bring into the mix. It doesn't make sense. What we're doing is we're creating mental visual pictures in our head of the same action over and over and over again. It's going to stay there. What's faster, sound or light? Okay, some of you think about it. No problem. I know it's one degree school, okay? So for others, do you hear the thunder first or do you see the lightning first? Some of you are still thinking. That's okay. All right. Okay. Who likes potty? Okay. So, sorry to bring it down. So, are you having fun, Monica? Okay, good. What's that? That's okay. That's all right. So, we'll talk about pattern interrupts later. Okay, so, you know, here, just come right in, just right in the back. Okay, oh, you really fell for it too? Okay, so what I just did was called a pattern interrupt. Okay? Wow, I'm good, look at that. I'm sorry, now, look at my, no, now you're not looking, but now, I dare you to look at the door. Hi, miss, how are you? Watch, no one's looking at you. And here's the funny part, someone actually walked right in. And you guys like, how do you do that? Well, Mike, the psychic, that's for Colorado. Okay, so, what's your name in the blue? Jenny. So what I just did was I pointed to the door and I said, come right in before you even came in. And what it is called a pattern interrupt. It takes your thought pattern from one direction where it was going to a different area, like when a child's displaying a negative behavior. The funny part was that I got, and no one else appreciated, was that after I said that, then you actually walked in, I said, really look, and now nobody was looking. And that's the funny part, is I have a little bit of psychic, so it's okay. Psychic, not, oh, okay. Unless I really do some blackjack. Okay, so, pattern interrupts. What their purpose is to take a thought pattern going in one wave, one direction, alter it for a split second, and then implant another thought so that the child is doing what we want them to do. A good example of the pattern interrupt is what I did this morning. I lulled you into sleep, right? And then, how many people did I actually like scare with whoever's listening hands in the air? Okay, a couple of them. That's a pattern interrupt. You weren't expecting that. There's pattern interrupts that we can use. I have my instructors, they come up with 5 to 10 pattern interrupts that they do one after the other. And what happens is it actually will stop a behavior challenge or a behavior issue right in its tracks. Why? Because, stop it, don't do that, stop it. If I tell, I'm gonna call. How's that working? It's not. So what we have to do is we have to use a little bit of brain work and brain mechanics to get in the children's heads to stop them from displaying negative behaviors. Some other pattern interrupts. How many of you flick the lights on and off? Okay, really? Okay, got it. How many of you do, okay, what are some other pattern interrupts that some of you have? Anybody do the, okay, how does that work? It works good, and then maybe after a while the kids hear and they don't care. Other pattern interrupts, what are some great pattern interrupts? Voices. You could have kids running all over the place. All of a sudden, if you start talking like something else, and all of a sudden the kids are looking at you like, what is wrong with you? And they're staring at you like, I don't know. Or you start changing your accents, everything. It doesn't really matter. But look, you're laughing, you're giggling. If you were daydreaming right now, I got you back. Okay? You can do anything. If you know how to do voices, just sit there. Anybody remember Gremlins? Or even back in the look, anything. Whip out a groover. Would you like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? It doesn't really matter. But all of a sudden, you're engaged again. Okay? It's all about, see, it's doing different things that the kids aren't used to. Because here's the thing, kids' brains are beyond the most complicated computer ever created. What do we use? About 10, 15% of our brain, they say? You know, some of you are thinking, not mine. Okay, some of you are thinking probably like 20, 30. We have in front of us a child with limitless potential, limitless energy, and a brain that processes over and over and over quickly. And we're expected to be in charge of them? No, they're learning every second. So trying to figure out how to get them to do things that we want them to do, we have to figure out how their brains work. And that's why pattern interrupts work. If all of a sudden you started doing a voice, that's fine. I had a teacher up at, there was a teacher up at the Goddard School, Randolph, and she was pulling her hair out. They had 2 twin blonde hair boys. I went up there. Wow. Is Ann here or Leanne? Leanne's not here? Okay. Leanne's not? Oh, I don't know what happened either. Stop the workshop. Okay. So the one teacher had these 2 twin boys. Now, who here has twins in their school? Who here has twins? Wow. Really? Who here has twins in the school that have not learned how to work together yet? Good. Because if you need to really get them to listen, you can figure out a way how to break them apart. When they learn how to work together, oh, forget it. It's like double the energy. These boys, I was there for 5 hours. They would not do anything that she wanted them to do. And they, in fact, I've never seen 2 kids as excited to cause chaos. When they were bored, literally it would be just like, okay, let's flip the switch. When they were bored, they would go, ah! And the other one, when he got tired, the other one on cue, tagged in and started doing the same thing. And I'm just like, ignore them, do this. I'm giving her all the different suggestions. She's like, what do I do? I'm like, we got to figure out a pattern interrupt that works. And we have to figure out something that is amazing, that actually stops. And she's like, nothing stops. And you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I believe you. Come on. I don't have to see them tomorrow. All of a sudden, 6 hours go by from 9 o'clock. It's about maybe like 3 o'clock. I'm like, I got to take a break because I needed one, okay? All of a sudden, I say, ignore them and go do your next thing. She's like, okay. She looks at left. She's like, no, today we're never doing the hokey pokey. All of a sudden, she goes over with me. She's like, all right, everyone, time to do the hokey pokey. The kids are in the back. Bricks are flying. This is everything amazing. Okay. All of a sudden, they start going. Put your left foot. Put your left foot in. Put your left foot out. Put your right foot. These kids are going, ah! And shit, you know about you do the hokey. And I go, gotcha. And that was the pattern interrupt that they needed. And I said, great, we got it. How do you feel about doing the hokey pokey 30 times a day? And she said, I'll be exhausted. And I said, no offense, have you seen yourself now? And I kept going, you know what? And look, sometimes you need to do that pattern interrupt, but then you do it 20 times. And then you do it 10 times. And then you do it, hey, who wants to lead the pattern, or who wants to lead the hokey pokey? And you give them some things to do, okay? And we'll talk about it a little bit later. We're doing the behavior management part. Let me see some other pattern interrupts. Voices, ta-da-ti-ti-ta, jokes, okay? Who here thinks you actually can't tell jokes in school? I mean, have fun. How many of you have a teacher or have had a teacher that just loves her job? Loves her job. Okay, is the director of Goddard Middletown here? No, okay. One of my former instructors, who actually, I couldn't give him full time, he's actually working over there right now, okay, as an assistant teacher. I learned from him what it means to have joy when it comes to children. And he's like a 21-year-old guy. But I've never seen somebody with such a passion. And his background isn't the greatest background in the world. And I could tell that that was an aspect that was missing. And when I introduced him to a group of 15 kids, and for the first time, there was a group of human beings that didn't judge him, he actually truly became himself. And we do stretching, and my stretching is roll your head around, do this, do that, little silly stuff. And he'd go like this. He'd like, "What'd you say, Mr. Shoulder? Tell the other shoulder that you owe me money. What'd you?" And then the stupidest stuff. He'd come over here as, "You owe me money, Mr. Shoe." He's like, "No, I don't. Hey, did you watch Oprah, Mr. Shoe?" And he's doing it. The kids are repeating. And I'm sitting there like, wow, I hired him? But then all of a sudden, he's just so goofy, and the kids are doing everything. And he changed his voice. He's having so much fun. Even implementing jokes and comedy is awesome. And some people don't even think about that. A mushroom walks into a bar. Bartender says, "I can't serve you." Mushroom says, "Why? I'm a fun guy." And the mushroom says, "You know what? It's kind of late. I'm going to get out of here. There's not much room anyway." Well, you're laughing. I've told that joke over and over. Midget walks into a bar. He says, "Ouch." Some of you are going, "You're not allowed to say a midget anymore. It's what is it this year?
Little person.
Little person. Okay, remind me in 5 years what it is. Okay. I thought those were kids. Okay, anyway. A bear walks into a bar. He says, "Hey, bartender, let me get a cold beer." And the bartender says, "No problem, buddy, but why the big pause?" That's not my stuff, okay. But it's stupid, it's common. But you know what? If you really want to make an impact for your school, you go, you get a joke book for 4-year-olds, and you just memorize like 5 jokes. And the kids will look at you, either excited or like, really? It's like, come on, we're on an 8-year-old level here. Knock, knock. Who's there? Interrupting cow. Moo. And someone's still laughing at that. It's silly, but there's so much that we don't bring into our schools that we think is inappropriate. I've had teachers tell me, we're not entertainers, we're educators. I say, got it. How's that working? And then the 2 teachers next to her know her going, it's just being unreasonable. Okay, so now we're talking about pattern interrupt now. What was the last thing that we were talking about before pattern interrupts? Point me. You don't remember. I don't remember. So someone actually remembers?
Eddie.
Eddie? Okay, good. We're talking about Eddie. She's talking about twins. Yeah, before that. So we're like, Eddie, how good do you feel that you actually got that answer right? Right? Kind of like that feel good type thing. Okay. So Eddie, back to the story I started about 25 minutes ago. So Eddie sits in the breathing chair. He gets a 1, he gets 2, he gets 3. Eddie sits in the breathing chair, but what do I do with the kids? I tell them, I don't want you thinking about a negative behavior. I want you to think about when you were being a good listener. Same thing when you rehabilitate a human being, okay? Why? Because when they're sitting crisscross applesauce for that, yes, 5 to 7 seconds, they're being good listeners. They can be good listeners if they choose to. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is we want to reinforce that to make sure. So when I tell Eddie, go sit in the breathing chair, remember when you were being a good listener? Remember when you were sitting quietly? He goes, uh-huh. It's like, I know that you're a good boy. And I want you to sit and breathe in and breathe out. And Eddie sat and he started breathing. He actually started breathing a little too fast. He raised his hand. He's like, Sensei, you're not breathing too much. I'm like, oh, you're doing fine. Just keep breathing, keep breathing. So he's sitting there breathing. I say, Eddie, when you're ready to be a good listener, raise your hand. So he's sitting there. I don't do the 1 minute for 1 year. I've had a child sit there for 15 minutes. But the reason why I had the child sit there is because I went up to the child 3 different times and said, do you want to come back to the class? The child said no. And I said, thank you for being honest. And I gave him a high five. And he looked at me like, what just happened here? All I did was I acknowledged a child for telling me the truth. I can't force a child to come back into a class if he or she doesn't want to. And here's the great time. When I walk into a class, I'm getting kids and there's a child that's redirected. And I see the child that's redirected, but they're redirected over like in the side, right by the toys. And they're sitting there playing with the blocks and doing this. And now, how do we expect that child playing with the blocks and having fun to want to come back to letters? Woohoo! So just a little food for thought there. So Eddie comes out of the breathing chair. He gets a little distracted. He gets a 4. When I give a 4, that means you go back to your classroom. Everybody's going to have a different type of 4. Some 4s could be go to the director's office. Some 4 could be don't go to the director's office. Because like the 6-week-olds that are training, or some 4s could be, oh, I don't know, I go to the director's office and mommy picks me up and she gives me a cookie, right? Exactly. There's one, how's Bailey doing? He's doing well, okay. This child is so brilliant. He knew exactly what to do just so mom would show up to give him a cookie. Except it took how long did the whole process take? 2 hours?
For us?
Yeah, for Bailey and the whole, it's hours. But eventually the final result was a cookie. So Eddie comes back out, he gets a 4, I go and I get the director. Now I go over here, now let me explain the way this room was set up. It's kind of like a little area where the kids can move around. Okay, you come in and the director's office is right across the way. Here's a doorway, it comes right in. Here's where we put the spots down. There's like a little, there's stairs that go up here and it goes over this little kiddie town. And the little kiddie town's pretty cool. They have like a kiddie airport, they have a kiddie post office, kiddie supermarket. I heard rent in there is pretty low, so if you guys, economy and stuff like that, okay? And then the ball, it goes over here, it comes over top, you can actually look through, and then it slides down into one of those super clean ball pits. You know those ball pits that they take the balls and every single night they scrub the balls ever so, amazingly get rid of every single, but I'm just kidding, those things are disgusting. And you used to love playing with them at Sesame Place. So you slide down and it kind of looks like a little romper room. Everybody run a romper room? Okay, if you're nodding your head, he's dating yourself, but that's okay. Okay, so Eddie gets a 4. And I have to get the kids, so I give the kids a do now. If nobody knows what a do now is, everybody give me 15 frog jumps. If you don't give the kids a do now and you turn your back on them, they'll find something to do. Usually it takes about 3 seconds, 4 seconds, fine. Usually it's the king, the leader of the classroom that they'll figure out what to do. So I try to avoid that. So I say, everybody give me 15 frog jumps. And the kids are jumping up and down looking silly, not that I do. Okay? And I go and I stick my head over here, and I open the door, and I cross the hallway, I look over, and the director's not there, but the assistant director, Miss Nancy's there. So I say, Miss Nancy, can you come and get Eddie? He's not really being a good listener, but next week I know if he really tries, he'll be okay. And she's like, all right, I'll be right in. So I go over, and Eddie's like, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And he's running all over the place, and I'm like, don't worry about it. Next week you'll be fine. I squat down, and I tell him, and squatting down is important, because sometimes, if you're sitting here, towering over a child, no matter what you're saying, it doesn't make a difference. Like Shaquille O'Neal, if he comes in here and he's talking to me, now I'm a big guy. I have black belt martial arts. I was a pro wrestler. Shaquille O'Neal comes in here. I don't care what he's saying. I'm just like, please don't step on me. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Here's the keys to my car. I don't even know. Because that's it. But if he squatted down or if he sat down to have a conversation with me, it would be a different conversation. Okay? So, I go to Eddie, I squat down, and tell him, next week, if you're a good listener, I have a blueberry stamp. This is a really, really good stamp if you want it. And he goes, oh, okay. I'm like, all right, you going to be a good listener next week? He's like, okay, but now you have to go with Miss Nancy. He's like, I don't want to go with Nancy, I don't want to go. And Nancy comes in, and she scoops him up, and she's like, Eddie, come on, and I need you to be a good listener, and I told your mom if you're not going to be in the karate, and she takes him off. Finish up the karate class. Class number 2. Class number 2. Eddie comes in. Eddie comes in and he goes and he lines up. And all of a sudden, I stop him and I tell Eddie, I have a blueberry stand for you today. Do you want a blueberry stand? He goes, uh-huh. I'm like, what do you have to do to get a blueberry stand? He goes, I want to be a good listener. I'm like, awesome. Give me a high five. He gives me a high five and he walks right over to his spot. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, that's all I had to do. I got him. No problem. Not a problem. Now, anybody here have any kids, older, younger themselves, ever do any martial arts in a karate school? Okay, a couple of you. Have you ever met a male karate teacher? Are we not the most egotistical, obnoxious, know-it-all, hairy-chested, like with the karate uniform that goes like this and like every single hair is like perfectly like made like that. Some of you are cringing, some of you are going, yeah, I noticed that, what's with that? Because they don't make undershirts enough to fit our egos. So, I myself am looking at this 3.5, 4-year-old child and thinking, now he's listening. I got him, no problem. And Eddie's standing right in his spot and he's standing like this. And I look over, and I'm like, I got him, awesome. Let's start playing the first game. And I look over, he's not there anymore. Huh? Honey, Okay? So all of a sudden he goes over and he gets one of the shopping carts. And he gets one of the shopping carts and he started to play with the shopping cart, going all over the place like this. And all of a sudden, I have 14 kids looking at me kind of like, what are you going to do about that, karate boy? And I go, that's a 1. And he goes, okay, and he starts playing with it again, and he's going all over the place. And I go, that's a 2. And he goes, okay, and he goes, and he starts, and now he's ramming it into the actual wall, and I go, that's a 3. And anyway, goes in the breathing chair, he goes right to the breathing chair, and he sits down. And I'm like, awesome, Eddie, what do you want to be? He's raising his hand already. I'm like, what are you raising your hand for, Eddie? And he's like, I want to be a good listener. I'm like, awesome, thinking to myself, oh, see, that's all I had to do. I just had to reinforce the rules a little bit, and I have him under control, because now he wants to be a good listener, no problem. So I let Eddie back into class. And Eddie goes and he stands right in the spot for about half a millisecond. And then he goes over and starts playing with the shopping cart one more time. At this point, I don't know what's going on. Okay? I'm not going to, let that out in front of the kids, because, we're men, so we know everything. Okay, so I give Eddie a 4. And I say, Eddie, I'm going to Miss Nancy. He's like, no, I don't want you to get Miss Nancy. Eddie, I'm getting Miss Nancy. So I give the kids, everybody give me 20 bear walks. So they start walking on their hands and their feet, and they're doing their bear walks. And I go over, and I grab the door, and I open it up. I'm like, Miss Nancy, can you come get Eddie? She's like, I'll be right there. So I turn around. This time, Eddie's not running all over the place. This time, Eddie has one hand on one railing. Can you see me over there? Okay, good. He has one hand on the other railing. He's got one foot on the step, and he's bouncing. And he's ready to take off just like he's like a horse race. And all of a sudden, Nancy comes in, she goes, Eddie, get over here. He goes, no. And all of a sudden, boom! He takes up and he starts running over the place, and he's running over. And Nancy, her heels like this big. Ladies, I have no idea how you do it. And for the guys out there, yeah. Okay, so anyway, and she starts clippy-clopping with her heels, and she's over here, and she's chasing him, and she runs up the stairs, and Eddie goes over here, and he goes down the slide. She's like, all right, so she runs around the back, and then Eddie turns around, runs up the slide, like Neo in the Matrix. Keanu Reeves would have looked at him and gone, I mean, he goes up there, and finally, he stops. And Nancy picks him up. Eddie, I told you have to be a good listener. If you're not a good listener, I don't know, and I really want to keep you in the karate class. And she's off. Probably the most intelligent thing I could say was, huh? And I'm looking over at him. He's not mad anymore. He's not sad. He's smiling. And you know that inside voice that sometimes comes outside? Most of the time it should be edited, okay? I say out loud, why is Eddie smiling? And then I had this one little girl in my class. Her name is Jennifer. I'm never going to forget her. Because she was a little bit younger. She literally hit that 3.5 mark. She wouldn't call me sensei. Sensei is, karate teacher. She would call me karate. Basically the conversation the first week started like, my name's Sensei Ron. She's like, karate. And she's pulling on my leg. I'm like, it's Sensei Ron. Karate. It's Sensei Ron. All right, it's karate. Whatever you want. Because she's cute. And we all know the cute ones get away with everything else. Exactly. Ladies, you know who you are. I never got to take in my time. Okay. And I asked, why is Eddie smiling? And Jennifer, she's pulling on my leg. And she looks over me and she goes, Eddie's smiling because Miss Nancy's Eddie's girlfriend. Eddie loves her. And everything kicked in. You know how you see like a movie montage? The 1, the 2, the 3, the this, the that, the jumping, the breathing chair, the back, the forth, the 4, Nancy coming in, Nancy coming out. Eddie trained me to have his, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, Nancy had long blonde hair. Nancy had amazing blue eyes. Nancy was one of these people, Miss Nancy, that, whenever you saw her, it's like one of these high energy people that either, depending on the type of person, you like either want to know who they are, you either want to give them a big hug like this, or if you're a different type of person, you want to give a big hug like that. It really depends. And Eddie had completely trained the big, dumb karate guy to have Miss Nancy come in, sweep him off his feet, carry him into the sunset, and walk off while I'm standing there in awe. And I could have been upset, and then it dawned on me, he's smarter than me. I'm going to pattern her up by getting a drink. What I want you to do for the next minute or two, it doesn't matter what the other 15,000 behaviors are. You have to think of the final result. Then if you work backwards, you can truly understand where your kids are coming from. But it's not just the kids. It's also your parents. It's also your teachers. See, adults are little children inside. How do I know that? When you tell yourself, I want to do this, I'm going out to get a job, I'm going to do this, I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to. Okay, fine. You ever tell yourself, I don't want to go to the gym. I want to eat that ice cream, I deserve it. I worked really hard today. That's a little kid in you. Embrace it, enjoy it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But that's how sometimes, okay, let's back up a little bit. Ever see the little kid come out in any of your teachers? Yeah. I don't want to work late. Ever see the child come out in any of your parents? Ever for some reason, like let's say if you're an assistant director, let's say if you're an assistant director, and let's say the director met the parents for the first time, then you meet the child, and then all of a sudden, so you actually meet the child for the first time and not the parent, and all of a sudden then you meet the parent second, you go, oh. When you get my child's not like this in my house, what'd you do to my kid? The thing, and then they go like, but I really want to tell you what you're doing to your kid. Bubble in the mouth. Just like that. Okay. Who's thinking about the kids in their school? Who's starting to see their kids in a little different light? Respect the intellect. Say it with me. Respect the intellect. Consider. There's that word. Here come the opinion. Oh, I'm smarter than the kids. I got a degree. I got these letters after my name. Okay. Kids are done. Okay. Consider that they're smarter, they're quicker, they're sharper, they're faster. Their brains process quicker. Some people look at ADD or ADHD as a negative, the shoulds. The teachers that don't want to deal with them anymore, and they think there's something wrong with the children, because that teacher, in my opinion only, this is not the expressed opinion of Goddard system, okay? My opinion only. I believe these kids are future kids. I believe there are teachers out there that have been teaching for way too long that actually shouldn't be teaching. And my job is to empower them to bring them back into teaching. But what happens is when these teachers are in front of some of the kids and they expect the child to change instead of them changing, I think it's a little backwards. Consider a child that's ADD, ADHD. Oh, that child can't focus. That child can't do this. That child can't process. What if it's the opposite? What if it's that child process this in a matter of split second and is waiting for the next little bit of information and we're too slow to give it to them? Consider it. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. It's happened once, but I was mistaken. Who here is thinking about a parent that maybe might have a little child inside them that's coming out? You're not going to tell me how to raise my kids. And you're thinking, really, who is? When I do parent training programs, I start off like this. Okay, everybody take out your manuals. And they look at me like, huh? So everybody take out your parenting manuals. We're going to start in chapter 2, and they're looking at me like, what parenting manuals? We're keeping parenting manuals. And they always get the one wife and the husband. I told you to bring the parenting manual. I don't know what the parenting manual is. I didn't know I had to bring the kids in. I told you to bring the parenting. Why don't you never listen? Okay, so the most complex computer in the history of this world, even NASA computer space shuttles, the flux capacitor, doesn't matter, whatever it is. Too many times watching you. Everyone's like, huh, that's not how we know. Or is it? Okay. Every one of them has a manual. And yet we're given a human being, a breathing organism, with a brain beyond anything we've ever seen, and unlimited energy. And basically this is how it goes. Here you go. Have fun. Oh, you can't screw it up. You can make some more. Don't worry about it. And then by the 8th or 9th one, you're like, I think I'm getting the hang of this. See, respect the intellect. If you look at a child and your opinion comes up, and all of a sudden, your opinion goes, should. I'm here for the child, not for me. But the parents are, I'm here for the child, not for me. Everything is for the child. See, when I was an instructor in my old karate school about 10 years ago, my sensei, the reason I have a background in education was because I didn't go to school for education. However, as I was going to school, I worked at a karate school full time while I took classes at night. The karate school consisted of a 10-year elementary school teacher who was the husband, a 10-year preschool teacher who was the wife, that both left the school system at the same time to open up their karate school to give us something called politics? Only in the elementary school, right? So for 5 years, 40 hours a week, I learned everything from them. And I learned how to work with kids, I learned how to train kids through their systems, and then I started implementing it with karate and with all the other stuff that I'm doing. But working with them, you get to see the difference, but it's also, there's a world that I come from, which is that when you go into a karate class, respect and discipline is the first thing that you learn. First thing you learn, attention, courtesy. Listen, yes sir, respect. Educational system, it's not even mandatory. I have an instructor who's going through a master's level of education at Kane University. He said he's still waiting for his first behavior management class. I go, what? What do you mean? I'm like, how do you teach a class if you can't get them engaged? And there's no manual, there's no book. He's like, well, I mean, now? He's like, he told me he actually has a teacher who he was supposed to be going out with to a school. She doesn't want to work with him anymore. Why? Because he walked into a class of third graders. She's trying to do this and this and this and get them engaged. He's standing there going, and finally he's like, he wasn't going potty. Okay, he's standing like this, and all of a sudden he's like, can I try something? Sure. And he just goes up, she's like, sure. He goes in and he goes, whoever's listening, hands in the air, touch your nose, touch this like that. Whoever's listening, touch your head. I got a joke, blah, blah, blah. I got a joke. He makes 3 voices. All of a sudden, within 35, 45 seconds, all the kids are going, and he goes, there you go. She doesn't want to work with him. He's not the most slick guy. He knows what he's doing. Not really good to show up a teacher in front of a classroom, but it works. Even if you just pattern her up and you're doing different things over and over, it does make a difference. When we're talking to parents, we're talking to staff, one of the hardest things to do is actually have a conversation that actually helps. Because sometimes what happens is we're having a conversation that we want it to help, we want to make a difference, our opinions can kick in there. Excuse me. When you get into a conversation with a husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, okay? If you're getting into a heated conversation and they tell you, relax, you of course go, oh, thank you, right? And then you just start with the conversation. No. Why? Because we're human and you're not going to tell me what to do. And it doesn't matter. How many of you have people in your lives that you know, if they're having a wonderful day, and you're not having that much of a wonderful day, you know exactly that one thing to say to them that will get them to go, and then you kind of feel better about yourself for about 2 seconds. And then you're in trouble. But we do it anyway. You know why? Because we're humans. Okay? How many of you have the opposite? How many of you could just be having an amazing day? You actually made a difference in a child's life. You did something incredible. And then you come home or you do this or you do that, and all of a sudden you get to this one place, and you walk in with that like zippity doo dah. You look over, there's a bluebird on your shoulder. It's whistling. I mean, you have like squirrels high-fiving around you. I mean, Bambi comes up. It's the most wonderful thing. And then that person says to you, hey, remember blah, 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 did you ever blah, 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 and all of a sudden you go, like that. And then that person goes, and they walk over happy for 3 seconds. And we know it's going to get us upset. We know it's going to set it up for a fight. And we do it anyway because we're human. It's amazing. We're the smartest creatures on this planet, right? We cause the most stress for ourselves. But we have this problem that as a human being, we always want to be right. And we love making other people wrong. It's a basic human need. People break up because I'm right, you're wrong. Wars are fought because my Bible's right and your Bible's wrong. And if we just gave up being right and being wrong and just looking at everything as being open, it's amazing what we can accomplish. But that inner voice kicks in a lot. We don't want to do that. And the other thing too is when we're giving corrections to people, okay? For example, let me ask you. I want to pick on somebody. Can I pick on you, Dawn? Okay, I was ready. So, Dawn, can you just sit up a little straighter? All right, awesome. And then just like pull your shoulders back a little bit. Okay, good. And just like put your feet flat on the ground. Just here to start with the feet. Okay, awesome. That's great posture. Awesome. And the posture is very important. So now, as I'm correcting you in front of everybody, how do you feel? Singled out. Okay. Do you feel more positive or more negative? Okay, right. So, right, she feels better sitting up straight, and that's fine. Oh, you guys saw my trick. That's pretty fun. How many of you are like, didn't you just have an orange one before? Okay. Hey, pattern to rock. You never know. Okay. So, forget it. You saw that. So, look, even though I made a correction for her, now you can say it any way you want. Okay, she already is. Okay, fine. Even though I made a correction for her betterment, knowing it's going to help her, the way that I made the correction did not empower her. I singled her out in front of everybody, just like when a child gets singled out in front of its class, or when an assistant teacher could get singled out in front of somebody else, or maybe accidentally you might have corrected somebody in front of a parent, or vice versa, or maybe even corrected a parent in front of a teacher. So there's so many different dynamics of it. Human beings do not like to be told what to do. In my karate classes, in my soccer classes, what have you, okay? We don't make more than 2 corrections. I don't care if you're picking up the ball with your hands, this and that. There's only a certain amount of corrections that we'll make for you not to feel diminished. However, what we do is we do a correction a different way. We call it our ace in the hole. It's called acing. A-C-E. Okay? Everybody's like, I'm picking up my pen, I get the right. Woohoo! ACE. Acknowledge, correct, encourage. Acknowledge. No matter what is going on, you start off with, I like the way. Right off the bat, you find something. If a child is not sitting correctly, I like the way your hair is on your head. I like the way, really? I like the way you're breathing. I like the way you're doing this. I like the way you're doing that. Then there's the correction. It's stuck somewhere in the middle. If you want to make it better, then blah, 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 blah. What feels better? Can you sit up or Dawn? I like the way that you're paying attention. Thank you. If you want to make it better, if you sat up a little bit, it might actually align your spine and you could actually be more focused. All right, if you want, give it a try. Cool? Give me a high five across the room. That's some pro wrestling. Okay. So, but now look. Now, which would you rather have the correction, the first one or the second one? the second one. Okay? How many of you would rather have the first correction? How many of you would rather have the second correction? Did the second correction here feel like a correction? Not really, because there's that if. Now, if she didn't want to sit up straight, I'll be done. No messing with you. Okay, I'll move on. If she did not want to sit up straight, that's her choice and that's fine. Most of the time, the child will listen to you. Most of the time, the teacher will listen to you. Because if you're above them, if you're a director, if you're a parent, if you're a child, doesn't matter. We want to impress other people and we want to be liked. A basic human need is to be liked. When you came in here, you wanted every single person in this room to like you. You want the head honchos to like you. You want me to like you. You want the blackjack dealer to like you. Can you tell I like blackjack, okay? You wanted this person to like you. You want the roulette. You want every person to like you. I want every person here to like me. I want you to like me. I want my camera guy to like me. I want this important guy in the suit to like me, okay? Everybody. I definitely want the pit boss to like me because I don't want to get kicked off those tables again. So, and you want everybody on the table to like you. If you know how to play blackjack, you got to play with the table. But that's lessons at 11:59 and some of you are like, oh, I'm write that down. Okay, we want to be liked, and then there's the other people that say, well, I don't care if people like me. And unfortunately, those are the people that really, really want people to like them. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a trait of being human. One of the greatest things that I've ever given to my instructors is I like the way. Anybody here currently use I like the way with their kids? Is it anything less than magical? I mean, you could have kids running all over the place. If the kids like you, which most of the time they do, believe it or not, and you say, I like the way you're standing against the fence, there are going to be no kids standing against the fence. All of a sudden, 15 kids line up against the fence. And they don't even know why, but I like the way. You like the way? I'll do it. Yes, sir. And they do. I like the way he's magical. I was doing this funny thing. I was doing when we created our, I know you guys have an awesome yoga program. When we were creating our yoga program a while back, I had a yoga instructor. She was like a pieced out hippie, man, and she's in college. She was one of these girls that, even when it's wintertime, she's always wearing flip-flops. And she's very versed in yoga, and I had been doing yoga for a while. Okay, and she's like, she kind of created the program with me. So she's telling me, I want the kids to, I don't want the behavior management to be really, prominent. I want, it's supposed to be a little different. So I'm like, okey-dokey, let's see what you got. So we have about 12 kids sign up for the class, and we used to use yoga mats before. We don't use them anymore because I'm sick of carrying yoga mats, okay? And all the kids are running around. They took their shoes off, and they're running all over the place. And she's like, come on, everybody, let's go sit. We're going to do some downward dogs, blah, blah, blah. And the kids are running all over the place. And I go to her, I like the way, and she looks at me with this look like, So I'm like, all right, fine. Kids are still running around over the place. I go to her again. I like the way. She's like, and then finally she got 2 kids to sit down. After she got those 2 kids to sit down, she had to chase after the other 10. Yeah, sure. By the time she turned around, those kids were gone already. Finally, I say, I like the way. She's like, She went like this. I like the way you're on the yoga mat, and there's no way. I like the way you're on the yoga mat, and all of a sudden, 12 kids file onto the yoga mats like this. What do you want us to do next? And I looked at her, and as mature as possible, I said, Because I want to be professional. So, can you see yourself giving suggestions using an ACE? Meaning, okay, so let's review. I like the way, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. You know what? Here's the thing. You can lie. I know you've never done it before. Okay? Just like when I was having a conversation with a parent 3 days ago on the phone, where she's asking, well, my child came home, and he said he didn't go to karate. I said, interesting. Did he have a stamp on his hand, the positive reinforcer? And she goes, no, he didn't get a stamp. He said he didn't go to karate. I'm like, okay, let me find out about it. I understand how upset you are. Let me look into it. Let me find out. So I call my instructor, and the instructor goes down and says, oh yeah, he got a 4. I go, oh, okay. And how is he? He's like, oh, the kid's brilliant. He pushes buttons. He's amazing. He knows what we're doing. By class number 4 or 5, we'll get him. We'll flip him. I'm like, awesome, good. Future leader of the class. So I call the parent back up. And I say, okay, got it. I spoke to the instructor. I heard your child is brilliant. I heard he's very, very smart. And what happened was he got a 4. What a 4 is, and I proceeded to explain. She's like, no. He didn't go to class. Then I get the famous, are you calling my child a liar? And I said, yes. What you always want to say. I said, yes, your child's a liar. Absolutely. All kids are liars. When I was a little kid, I'm a liar. When you were younger, you're a liar. You probably still lie now. He's probably a liar. Everybody lies. We're human beings. We're always liars. And you know what? Eventually he'll pass the bar and he'll be a great liar. And she went, beep. That's a dollar. No, I'm kidding. And after a while, I called her back. I'm like, look. And then we had a conversation. But, I mean, look, it's amazing. It's like, what happened to, like, when I was growing up? Okay, let's back up a little pattern of trouble. When I was in school, okay, understanding how the human brain works and understanding the smart kids, like, trying to really realize why kids do certain things and why kids don't, okay? It was a Wednesday morning. I got into a fight with this one kid. Okay, you ready? Why did I get into a fight? Come on, I punched this kid. Just a true story, 6th grade. Punched him right in his nose. Why'd I do it? Come on. He made fun of my lunchbox. He made fun of my G.I. Joe lunchbox. No. Okay, now, here come the parts where the human brain starts kicking in all the stories, because you have 1,000,001 stories about why things happen. None of them have anything to do with the truth. Maybe accidentally you'll catch the truth, but it's okay. So keep going. Okay, so he made fun of my lunchbox. 6th grade lunchbox. Really? I stopped that at like, oh, I got you. Okay, what else? Give me like 3 other reasons. Why did I punch him in his face?
Well, because he looked at you wrong.
Call me fat, nice, okay. Thanks, Laura, okay. Okay. I'm not fat, I'm big bone. Okay, go on. What's that? Call me a liar. One more. Come on, really out there. Like I was fighting a dragon. He was an evil lord. What do you think? What's that? My mom is so fat. Okay, so now, she's not. She's this little Israeli lady about like half the size, and she's dangerous. The first time I learned how powerful my mom was when we're sitting around the table, we're going through different pictures, and she's like, this is a picture of me in high school, this is me, you know, a picture of college, and you know, in Israel, you go high school, and then Army, and Navy, whatever it is, and then you go to your regular job. And then she's like, this is a picture of me with my favorite gun, I usually like the M16, and this is me with your father on our first date in his tank, and I'm like, I'm never doing anything wrong ever again. Okay, but now, here's the reason. I also gave you a little hint, it's Wednesday. I said it was Wednesday. I punched him in his nose. I went home because I got out of school suspension. And then, of course, I get home. I erased. Remember back in the days where you could actually erase the voicemail? I was a master of that and changing D's to B's. Just put that one little line right. Now it's all electronic. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. So I go home and I'm like, Mom, somebody punched me. He made fun of me. I tried to defend myself, and then he punched me. Now, the real reason why I got into the fight is because I had a really big test on Friday. And I really didn't feel like studying for it. So I wanted to wait. And a fight gets you 3 days of out-of-school suspension. Or my mom called it vacation. So, you know, I go home, but here's the thing. So you don't realize why people do certain things until you see the final result. And then what ended up happening, when my mom says, why are you home? It's Thursday morning. I said, no, I got into a fight. You know, I told her last night, remember I got into a fight? So now I have out-of-school suspension, and that kid tried to beat me up, but I defended myself. Aren't you proud of me? And she's like, get dressed. I'm like, oh boy. So I get dressed, and we go to the principal's office. And the principal says, well, our policy is that if you get into a fight, you both have 3 days of out-of-school suspension. And she's like, so my son gets into a fight, and he gets 3 days of vacation. She's like, no, not vacation, out-of-school suspension. I'm like, he's going to get to watch TV all day while I'm gone. And he's like, no, you don't understand. She goes, no, you don't understand. This guy was about 6'6", okay? And she brought him down to about 3'6". She said, for every day of out-of-school suspension my son has, I want him to have 2 days of in-school suspension. And I don't know whose jaw dropped faster, mine or his. And he said, well, our policy is like, your policy is if I put him on the bus, you have to keep him until 3 o'clock or I'm going to sue you. And I go, that's my mama. I'll be in that cage room right there. And I just sat there. Thursday, I studied for the test. Friday, I passed the test. And I sat there. And I did not get into a fight or get in trouble the whole entire thing because she followed through with the rules and consequences. Okay? That's just a little side note with why my mom is. But when we're talking about acing, you know, I like the way. Okay, so I just pattern trouble go all over the place. As long as you come back, it's fine. You may need a notepad. I like the way. Blah, 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 blah. If you want to make it better, blah, blah, blah. And add in your own whatever correction. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay? And then you give them a high five or an encouragement before they even try it. Imagine getting an acknowledgement. You saw the power of the high five. You want to see it again, get a feel for it? Notice how you are now. Good. Left, right, high five, go. Do it. Good, good. Okay, good. Now, how many of you are trying not to smile? Why? I don't, you know, people that try not to smile. High fives are the most amazing thing. When I do this program in elementary schools, I work with the teachers and with the paraprofessionals. And then I work with the bus drivers and I work with the janitors. And they're sitting there like, why are we here? I say, you are the first faces that a child sees. I did the program about a month and a half ago, right in Atlantic City at a charter school. I know some of these kids don't come from the most amazing home situations. And I said, your high five when they get on the bus and a smile will set such an amazing pace for them. And then if they walk into the school and they see the janitor give them a high five and a genuine, how's it going? Not a, how's it going? And all of a sudden someone starts telling you and you freak out like, why are you telling me this? like, hey, how you doing? Good. Well, see what happened was, don't really tell me. But we do that. But here's the thing too, is also, see, when you're correcting someone, you also want to make sure that there's a solution in place. Look, I know you have all the answers, and if you don't have all the answers, then of course, you know, the franchisees have all the answers, right? Okay, because a lot of them are male, right? But here's the thing, with my instructors, if you, let's say we're talking about your teachers, if you come up to me with a problem, and there's no solution, in my mind, and I tell them this, you don't want the problem solved. You just want to complain. And that's fine. Don't complain to me, don't complain around my company. Very, very simple. Does that make sense? See, the way I do it is like this. If there's a problem, you come to me with the solution. I actually want you to think. If you start whining, I just say, I'm going to call the ambulance. You guys know the ambulance? Okay? Come to me with the solution. You're going to get 3 different responses from me. Number 1, great idea. Run with it. Number 2, great idea. Let's tweak it. Number 3, great idea. We're going to do the exact opposite. Now I understand how you think, and if my idea doesn't work, then we'll try your idea, and then in your head go never. Okay? But do you see how there's a different way to communicate? Because like who here likes to complain? Oh, you know all your hands. She in the back, she's like, I am. You're not funny enough. Okay, so. Okay. Anybody know what time it is? 11:30? 10:30? Wow, okay. It's like the casinos. Notice something, 2 things at casinos. Number 1, they pump a pure form of oxygen in, so you're awake. And number 2, you will never see a clock. Because you'll never see a clock because, you know, then you'll be in your room and you can't be at the table. Blackjack. Okay, sorry. How many here stayed at the Sheraton last night or are staying there tonight? Okay, so you can even play this game tonight. It's called the elevator game. Okay, and the way you play the elevator game is like this, okay? And it's not the elevator game where you sit there hitting the button, okay? On the inside, even though it's a lot of fun. No, sorry, you can't do that. Sit there, it's like, wow, 30 floors. It's like, tee, 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 tee. Every single person walks. It's fun for about a half hour, okay? So the first elevator you come up to, you know, generic elevator. Let's say it's right over here. Let's say it goes up to about the 15th floor, okay? So you go over and you walk over to the elevator, and you hit the button. And it goes, and you're on the first floor, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10. You're sitting there, and eventually it goes down to 1. Hop on your elevator, boom, you go right up to your floor. Other 2 elevators aren't working. There's a big sign, somebody fell down, I don't know. Bruce Willis had a war with somebody or something. Okay, Die Hard, favorite movie. Anybody like Die Hard? Yeah. Okay, notice now that I say Die Hard, okay, who feels a slight connection with me? Isn't that weird? Ready? Who saw The Matrix? Who saw Julia and Julia? Yeah, I didn't see that. Okay. Who watches 24? Okay. Couple. Have you watched it all the time? Not all the time? What's that? You skipped a couple of days? See, when you skip a day, it's like a whole entire season. Okay? Who here has heard about 24 and says, I'm not going to watch it no matter what? You really want to watch it because you really want to hear what's going on. It's the best show on TV. Who watches Lost? Okay. Notice how when I say something that relates to you, all of a sudden there's this connection between us. So no matter what we could be talking about, all I need to do is bring up that one thing, all of a sudden we're connected again. SpongeBob, who watches SpongeBob? All of you. Okay, ready? Now you're going to start seeing the faces going like that. Who watches South Park? Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, and the other one's like, that's so inappropriate. What are some other shows? Somebody give me, what's it, Fringe? Oh, don't tell me, my DVR wasn't working last night, and I couldn't even tape it. I'm just like, I want to go back to, what else? Dollhouse? What's that? Dazed and Confused? What? Oh boy, we'll hang out later. Grey's Anatomy? Okay. Woohoo! I actually watched that for a little bit, and it just, I don't know, it just scares me. Like those like all that blood and stuff like that, and being a pro wrestler and a karate guy, that's like, I guess that's okay with the blood on the outside, but the inside sounds a little weird. Okay. Simpsons fans? Family Guy? Okay, good. So, we can be having a conversation, we can be talking about this, we can be talking about that. All of a sudden, I start talking about something else, or I start doing, like Peter's voice from Family Guy. Or I start talking Sesame Street. If all of a sudden we're talking, having a conversation, we're getting heated. And all of a sudden I say, I do my Grover impression, and you start giggling and laughing. You reconnect. So here's my question to you. How many of you know how to instantaneously reconnect to every single one of your teachers? Or how many of you know one or two little facts of every single one of your teachers and your franchisee and your kids, now it's getting a little bit, that you can constantly go back to that 1, 2, or 3 things and restart a conversation. Does that make sense? So even learn about it. Like the first thing we do in our program, we do the name game. But it's not just the name game. It's, my name is Billy, and my favorite ice cream is blah, blah, blah. Or my name is Joey, and my favorite TV show is so-and-so. What's your favorite movie? And then I could have a child that's completely running off the wall. And all I need to do is start talking about, Spy Kids in 3D. And I got this one kid at a different school. He goes nuts. And he'll be running all over the place. And I'll talk about Spy Kids 3D. And he'll go, oh. And I'm like, do you remember that one scene? He's like, oh, that was so cool. Yeah. And then I just pattern interrupt them. But the key with the pattern interrupt is, like we said before, you have to have something to put in place. See, if you pattern interrupt, and they're in there, then you can make mistakes. It's okay. When you pattern interrupt, and there's that lull, and you don't know what to put in that place, the children with their super brains will remember. So even have little things in your back pocket, like a game, something you can do to pattern interrupt to get them back. Okay? What were we talking about before pattern interrupts? You guys are getting good. Okay, good. So the elevator goes to the 15th floor, goes all the way down, you push the button. One time, for you people that you know who you are. Okay? So the elevator, now, next time you go downstairs, oh wow, we started talking about this with Die Hard. Don't think about him going down the elevator, okay? Pull, I have a machine gun. Okay, so now there's a second elevator. And this elevator looks a little same but different. So you walk over to this elevator and hit the button, okay? Now, the elevator, this one, same thing, it's going the same speed. They're both coming down at the same time. Now you have the people that were laughing, that they walk up and they go, and you look at them, you're about to tell them, you want to tell them, I already pushed the button, but you like to see other people, do stupid things. Like when you tell them that door is closed and they'll still try it, you sit there and watch them about to go, and it's like, they're going to do it. And then you see that frustration on the face that you had about 10 minutes ago. Messing with humans is fun. So it goes down, same speed, they come over, and they start hitting the button. And you're thinking, oh, nothing's gonna happen. All of a sudden, this elevator goes 50, 40, 30, 12, 11, boom, one, opens the doors. And that person goes, oh, and then walks right in. And you're sitting there going, get the beep out of here. How did that work? Then the elevator, then your door opens, you're like, oh, I'm gonna try this again. I wanna see this. Both elevators go all the way up, you go, you hit the button over here, and all of a sudden it goes, now that elevator's going the same speed, and this elevator all of a sudden flies down, opens up the doors. This time there's balloons in there. And there's like a hors d'oeuvre cart in there. Which one do you go in? The second one, of course. Now, it's the next day. Come downstairs, all three elevators are open. You have the first elevator here, you have the second elevator here, but all of a sudden this one says out of order. Now you got a third elevator that's open. This elevator over here looks like your typical elevator. You push the button, that one goes 15, 14. Now it's going slower because a lot of people are using this elevator. And then there's this button over here, it's got a different button. You push this button, 15. Push the button faster, 15. Push the button faster, 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 faster. Stays at 15. How long are you going to stay at that elevator? Eventually, this elevator comes down, opens up the door. The other one, the super fast one, doesn't come down. Which one do you go into? The one in the middle that opened? The one that you're still waiting because it's never showing up? Or the broken one? Probably the one in the middle. Some of you are laughing. I'm going to wait for the broken one. It sounds like it's more fun. That's fine. So the question I have for you is, which elevator are you? Are you an elevator that when someone pushes your button, do you just slowly get to them and answer their question when it's up to you? Or are you an elevator that the more someone pushes your buttons, the faster you react, the more excited you get, and the more fun it is for the person pushing your buttons? Or are you the elevator that you can have your buttons pushed as much as possible? You can have your buttons as much as possible, but no matter what, you're going to show up whenever you feel like showing up. You're going to react on your terms, not on their terms. Who thinks you're the first elevator? Who thinks you're the second? But they're reacting. Who thinks you're the third? Okay, got it. The last thing I'm going to go over is something called capping. C-A-B, not mic capping, okay? But capping with only one P. Capping is confirm another praise. What do I mean by that? When you're having a conversation with somebody and you're telling them to relax and they get more upset at you, you're not in their world. You're not really communicating, you're not really being there to make a difference for them. Does that make sense? Because when some person tells you do this and you tell them you can't do this, when you tell a child, oh, I believe you can write inside the lines, and they go, no, I can't, and you go, yes, you can, no, I can't. When you tell a teacher, go and try this, and they go, I don't think that's going to work. Oh, no, try it, don't worry, you'll be okay. You're butting heads with each other. You ever have that situation happen? Maybe with your franchisee, maybe somebody in your life. You want them to do something, you know with 100% confidence that you know that they can achieve that thing that you want them to do, and they're not willing to try because they're scared or whatever the situation is. So try something else. Try to cap them. Confirm another praise. First of all, you get into their world. How good does it feel when somebody is in your world, or when somebody really understands where you're coming from? Like really. Like instead of saying relax to you, going, wow, you must really be upset. I didn't realize how upset you really are. If I think about that, I think I'm going to handle it differently because I don't want to get you upset. And then the person, you look at them like, wow, you really got me. And it feels good to be guided. It does. It feels good to be like, it's like, some of you thinking, there's people out there like that? And there are. But if you confirm, you get in their world. If it's a teacher, okay? Wow, I really get your frustration. If it's a parent, and that parent dropped their child off at 7:30 in the morning, and doesn't pick up the child until 6 o'clock, and you get in their world, it must be so difficult for you to drop your child off. Look at their pictures all day. Think about them. Wonder what they're doing. And then have to go home at 6 o'clock after you pick them up, cook dinner, and only get an hour to see them. it must be so difficult. If you're a parent, you can really confirm it. If you're not, you get in their world. Then you go with another. So you take the focus off them. I know another parent. Let's say you're dealing with a child with a behavior issue. I know another parent who had the same issue. This child did A, B, and C. And what happened was, she did, and then you give the suggestion that you want to give without making yourself feel right or righteous. And then you praise. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for understanding. Okay, thank you for considering trying this. And then you give them a high five. And then you end up with, thank you because we're all on the same side. Do you think that conversation might be a little more powerful than a regular conversation when a parent comes in and just sits there knowing how the conversation is going to go? See, but it also works with the kid. The first time that I ever actually met Mike, he came to look at my program. He came to take a look at this behavior management seminar we're going to go over later. I was doing a karate class, okay? And I had about maybe 15 kids running around. Parents are coming to pick up their kids. And I had a little obstacle course set up over here. And one of the little girls, she was about maybe 3.5 years old. I had a little thing that she has to jump over. And she drives, and she stops right there. Now, I'm under pressure. I have Mike sitting in the corner watching me. I have the director I don't know if the director was in there or not. I don't remember if you guys were in there. She's like, no. A couple of the parents were sitting there watching. A couple of the teachers were there. And now this little girl goes, I can't. I could have gone into my head and gone, yes, you can, you could do it, please. He's sitting there watching you, begging you, okay? And I could have sold out on her. And it happens all the time in our mind. And I didn't. I said, you know what? I'm going to cap her. I know this looks really, really hard. I get that the blocker looks like it's almost impossible to jump over. But I know another little girl. She has blonde hair. You know what? She had the same kind of flashy shoes like you. And now the child is envisioning herself or another child? She's envisioning herself. And what she did was she jumped over it. She brought her knees to her chest. She brought her knees to her what? Chest. She's like she yelled, Aya. She was able to do it. And then she goes over, and I'm like, if you want to try, you can. If, choice. I gave her a high five. And the moment of truth, she stands there. She looks at me. She looks at it. And she goes, Aya! And jumps over it. And the place erupted. The parents were so happy. The kids were like, yay! And then I ended the class. Done. It ain't getting better than that. The point is, with all this, you have tools that I've given you, that I'll give you more later. You have the option every second of every day to sell out on the teacher, to sell out on the parent, or to sell out on the child because your opinions will come up. Yes, it's harder to have an ACE conversation. Yes, it's harder to have a CAP conversation. But it makes a difference in the child's life. So all I'm asking you to do is for the rest of the day, no matter what's being talked about, look at it as everything that we do from this point on will make a difference for the child. Because that's what we're here for. Thank you.